Welcome to the next module in the Ultimate Prep course. Today, let's talk about PEDs. So, what's going to be covered? Why is gear being used in contest prep? Which is the best gear stack? How do I assess my stack/usage? What should my cycle actually look like? How does compound selection change during the whole course of a prep? We're also going to go over a few common myths when it comes to using PEDs in contest prep. Myth number 1, why don't you just use a cutter in contest prep, bro? Yes, while certain compounds, they do have a general effect, they also have multiple applications in practice. We don't want to be using compounds that are going to let you hold water, because that's going to skew the visual assessment of progress during prep. So compound selection in prep, we're wanting to err on the side of using the most benign substances we can. Things that aren't going to be horrendous for health markers, while still providing enough anabolic load to be able to get what we need out of them. For most people, this is going to be a test base. The rest of the stack is going to be made up mostly of DHTs. And then you might have some orals pulled in at the end. So there's no such thing as a cutter or a bulker when we're talking about PEDs. Common myth number 2, the more gear you take, the better you're gonna look. While yes, gear over the long period of time of somebody's career is gonna be escalated, it doesn't actually equate to a better look on stage. Understanding that we're just looking for a total anabolic load that's gonna lead to muscle retention. Right? That's the end goal here. But sometimes if you add in too much, you can actually get yourself into a toxic state and it's not going to work as well. A healthy body is a responsive body. More gear is often not the answer. More gear usually means we have more to manage. Common myth number 3. So this is what the pros do, so I'll just copy that. Compound selection management is about selecting the compound specifically for that individual. Blindly following a pro stack is super irresponsible and uneducated because you don't know the reasons behind why they're using that, or if it's actually what they're using. A lot of times you'll hear about these cycles online and you talk to the actual athlete themselves. It's not what they're running. Some meathead online was trying to get some clickbait, put together something that sounds crazy to be able to get some clicks. So don't be following that. Not to mention, a lot of these athletes are so much farther in their career than some of you listening. They're gonna need more anabolics because of where they're at in their career. When you're newer in this, you're usually not gonna need as much. Kind of think about it like this. You wouldn't copy someone's specific diet or specific workout routine and expect it to work perfectly for you. Yeah, there's some bases in there, but different person, different body, different response. You have to understand that what is going to work with your body might not work with the next guy. About collecting that data and putting together a specific plan for you. Common myth number 4. Okay, switching to shorter esters is going to help me drop some water and I'm going to look way better. Yes, fast-acting compounds definitely have their application. They can work great when we're wanting to toggle things up and down in a short duration of time, but the ester doesn't actually correlate to water retention. One thought behind this, just because something's always been done a certain way doesn't mean you have to use it. If something is working for an athlete, don't go switching shit around just because it's what you're supposed to do. A lot of times, that's where you can run into issues. And if you would have just stuck with it, you wouldn't have had them. Common myth number 5, I'm gonna save all my PEDs for contest prep. I'm gonna run them even higher than in the off season. So yes, compound dosage can go up and down depending on where that client is at in their contest prep, in their career. But during contest prep, the goal isn't to gain muscle. The goal is to have enough anabolics in to actually be able to elicit a response to retain tissue. That's it. We're wanting to hold on to muscle tissue. We're not even looking to grow. We're wanting to hold on to tissue. It's going to take a lot less gear to retain tissue than it is to grow tissue. There's been a lot of methods over the years, but don't take just one method as pure gospel. 100 ways to skin a cat. See what works best for you. So, the big question, why is gear used in a contest prep? Using anabolics during a contest prep, it's not always needed. Some of these natural athletes might just be what you want to achieve. That's awesome. But in open bodybuilding, gear is just one more tool that we can leverage. In application, adding in PEDs is to stimulate the androgen receptor. The androgen receptor is going to signal for muscle protein synthesis, and it's going to help keep muscle around. That's the goal. So there's a heap of different compounds that you can use, and they all have slightly different application, but they all target that androgen receptor. Some of them can leave you with a fuller look, a drier look, a harder look, and it's about figuring out which ones get you that desired look, or the combination of them. So the takeaway here, gear is more complex than just taking something. Your selection can have a huge role in what actually the final product looks like. A proper cycle is gonna look different for everyone. So which is the best contest prep stack for prep? The best stack is the one that works for you. Between these different compounds, there can be synergies and harmonious effects. But with every compound added is one more thing that you might have to manage. So you're wanting to select a stack that is sustainable, predictable, and easily manageable. The more that you throw in there, the more complex things get. We want to make sure that one, we're recovering, we're sleeping, we're managing stress, and we're not just putting a bunch of extra gear in, which is going to be one more thing for your body to stress on. The takeaway here, we want to choose compounds that work well for you. There's no set formula because everything is individual. If someone tells you this is the stack for you, they're an idiot. So how do I run an assessment on my PED usage? One, we can look at a training assessment. Are you losing strength? Are you gaining strength? What's your endurance looking like? Is cardio endurance suffering? Okay, dosage might need to be escalated. Am I holding water, or is my look getting worse every week? Are the compounds you chose holding water? Is your estrogen being managed correctly? Are the dosages too high, which is causing a lot of organ stress? You might need to change that stack or adjust doses. Biofeedback. Ask the athlete, how are they feeling? Are they having mood swings, libido issues, rage issues, whatever it ends up being? See if that biofeedback warrants changing the cycle. Number 4, health management. Although some compounds have a fantastic physical effect, they are horrendous on the body, and they're not sustainable for a long period of time. Compounds like orals can really skew health metrics, so we're gonna wanna mitigate potential long-term use of that. You gotta be able to understand when and why and where we would put this application in. That's what's essential to keeping that athlete healthy and progressing. So, Carson, what should my cycle be like? So first things first, you need to figure out what your total anabolic load is needed. Is this your first cycle? Are you deep in cycles? How long have you been doing this for? What is your health metrics like? Stuff like that. So we're wanting to then put enough testosterone and be able to have a nice base. Some people, this needs to be lower than others. We want to be able to have some estrogen in the body. We're not looking to hammer that down till potentially the last few weeks. The rest of that load can be made up from a compound that's not going to aromatize. Mastron, primobolan. So different phases are going to call for different stack design. This takes experience, and it takes some data to understand what works well with that athlete. The takeaway here, find your total load needed, break it down into what the best options are for you from previous data. So how does compound selection change over the whole prep? Pre-prep, we're gonna start with something quite sustainable, something quite low. You're not gonna need a lot right off the bat. Front end of prep, we're gonna establish a total anabolic load needed to retain tissue. Middle of prep, this is probably where we're gonna have to start to manage some side effects. You're gonna have to leverage certain compounds for fat loss, or play around with certain compounds for strength or a visual effect. End of prep, selecting compounds that are going to lead the best look to stage day. Potential estrogen management, potential oral deployment, potential removal of certain compounds that might bring a better look. So then we're talking about peak week here. We want to keep that look stable. We want to manage the compounds for a final look. And we want to make sure we don't have a whole bunch of unexpected issues. The takeaway, each stage of prep has a certain goal. It needs to be treated as a framework, but it's not a set formula for everyone. The better that you can manage each phase, the better the final outcome is going to be. Gear usage is extremely individualistic. Everyone's gonna have a different response and a different need for compounds to go in and go out. We're obviously wanting to use as little as we can to get the job done. A healthy body is gonna work wonders. We wanna understand the effects and the side effects. You either need to understand those or you need to work with a coach or a mentor who does. That way they can guide you through the process with the least amount of damage possible. You gotta remember here, more does not equal better. If you're interested in learning more about contest prep management, reach out to me to take your training to the next level. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, or shoot me an email. Done.